Picture this. You wake up Tuesday morning, step outside with your coffee, and hear the rumble of concrete trucks disappearing from the old stone bridge. The only bridge connecting your property to the outside world, now blocked by massive concrete barriers. That's what Marcus Kellerman found when his corrupt HOA decided his 60-year-old family farm was ruining their $15 million luxury neighborhood. The smell of wet concrete hung in the morning air. His diabetic mother couldn't cross to reach dialysis. His teenage daughter was trapped, missing school. Emergency vehicles cut off completely. The HOA claimed emergency bridge repairs. But Marcus soon discovered their real plan. Cut his lifeline until he'd sell his $3.20 million property dirt cheap, clearing the final obstacle to their exclusive development. Well, they picked the wrong farmer. Marcus had cameras rolling, 2 years of evidence, and a legal nuclear weapon that would land the HOA queen in federal prison. What would you do if they literally cut your bridge to force you out? Where are you watching from? I bet half of you have HOA nightmare stories. Marcus Kellerman never thought he'd be fighting for his life at 52. Third-generation owner of Kellerman Farm, he'd inherited 15 acres of the most beautiful land you've ever seen. Rolling hills covered in heritage apple trees his grandfather planted in the 1960s when this area was nothing but farmland and country roads. Back then, his grandfather Daniel had helped fund the construction of Millbrook Bridge, a charming stone structure that connected their hilltop farm to the main county road. The smell of apple blossoms in spring, the crunch of gravel under work boots, the distant lowing of cattle from neighboring farms. This was rural America at its finest. His family lived in the original 1890s farmhouse, weathered clapboard siding that had sheltered 5 generations. Wife Sarah worked as a school nurse, 16-year-old daughter Emma played varsity soccer, and 78-year-old mother Dorothy lived with them, requiring life-saving dialysis 3 times a week. A normal American family on land they'd called home for 60 years. But times change, and not always for the better. 10 years ago, luxury developer Prestige Valley Estates bought the surrounding 200 acres and built 47 McMansions worth $800,000 to $1.5 million each. Overnight, Marcus found himself surrounded by people who considered his organic vegetable operation an eyesore, and his heritage farm incompatible with luxury living. The new residents formed the Millbrook Lane Homeowners Association, claiming authority over the shared private road, including the historic bridge Marcus family had helped fund. The original 1962 easement documents were frustratingly vague about maintenance responsibilities, creating a legal gray area that would soon become a weapon. Then came Vivian Ashworth, your worst HOA nightmare made flesh. Picture a 61-year-old retired pharmaceutical executive with a perfectly styled blonde bob, always dressed in designer tennis whites, driving a white Tesla Model X. Like she owned the world. She'd moved from Connecticut 2 years earlier with an attitude that screamed, "I'm better than you small-town people." Vivian immediately ran for HOA president, unopposed after she somehow convinced the other candidates to withdraw. Her first official act complaining about the agricultural odors from Marcus' composting operation. You know, the smell of healthy soil that feeds the organic vegetables she probably bought at Whole Foods for triple the price. The harassment started subtly. Certified letters about property value concerns. Anonymous complaints about farm equipment noise at 7 a.m. Apparently, tractors disturbed the tennis schedule. Suggestions that Marcus might be happier somewhere more agricultural. Each interaction grew more aggressive. Vivian would park her Tesla at the bridge entrance, timing Marcus' daily routines. Like a stalker, she'd take photos of his delivery trucks, measuring tire widths, and documenting every perceived violation of some imaginary community standard. The legal intimidation escalated when Vivian hired Blackstone and Associates, a law firm notorious for aggressive HOA enforcement. They demanded Marcus provide proof of legal road access rights within 30 days or face access termination procedures. Marcus tried reasoning with her, offering to pay his proportional share of legitimate maintenance costs. Vivian's response, a condescending smirk and the words, "Oh, Marcus, this isn't about money. This is about what's best for the community." The way she emphasized community made it crystal clear his family wasn't included in her vision. That's when Marcus started recording conversations. During one heated phone call, he overheard Vivian discussing market assessment showing 15 million total development potential with someone named Brad. Terms like Phase 1 complete and final obstacle removal kept surfacing. The night before they cut his bridge, Vivian held an emergency HOA meeting. Marcus wasn't notified. Naturally, the next morning, massive concrete barriers and road closed, authorized vehicles only signs greeted him like prison walls. The acrid smell of fresh cement hung in the air as diesel fumes from departing construction trucks drifted across his apple orchard. His family's lifeline to the outside world, severed with surgical precision. Dorothy missed her dialysis appointment. Emma got detention for tardiness. And Marcus realized this was war. The bridge blockade was just the opening shot. Within 48 hours, Marcus received a 14-page legal document from Blackstone and Associates that made his blood boil. The letterhead alone probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. And the message was crystal clear: surrender or face total destruction. Vivian's lawyers claimed Marcus had exceeded agricultural use limitations and damaged community infrastructure through excessive commercial vehicle traffic. The evidence, photos of tire ruts allegedly from Marcus' tractor, except Marcus immediately recognized those tracks. They came from the HOA's own construction vehicles used to install the bridge barriers just days earlier. The legal deadline was brutal: 21 days to remedy all violations or face permanent access termination. Translation: sell your family farm or become a prisoner on your own land forever. But Marcus wasn't backing down. That weekend, while Sarah kept the farm running and Emma helped with weekend chores, he spent 2 full days at the county records office. The musty smell of old paper and fluorescent lighting reminded him of his high school library. But these dusty file cabinets held the key to his family's survival. What he found made him smile for the first time in weeks. The original 1962 easement deed stated in plain English that the Kellerman family had perpetual vehicular access rights for agricultural and residential purposes. Marcus remembered reading somewhere that continuous road usage for 20-plus years creates legal rights that HOAs typically can't revoke, and his family had been using this road for 60 years. Even better, the document specified that road maintenance costs should be shared proportional to usage. As Marcus dug deeper, he discovered the HOA had been systematically overcharging commercial trucking companies for excess fees, pocketing the excess revenue. Marcus hired Janet Reeves, a tough-as-nails local attorney who'd spent 30 years fighting property rights cases and had never lost to an HOA. Janet took one look at the evidence and immediately filed a quiet title action to clarify road rights, plus demanded a complete audit of the HOA's suspicious $180,000 annual road maintenance budget. That's when Marcus stumbled onto something that changed everything. Following the money trail through construction invoices, he discovered the HOA had been billing the exact same road repairs to 2 different accounts, charging both member dues and Prestige Valley Estates construction budget. $45,000 charged twice for emergency infrastructure improvements. Pure fraud. Documented in black and white. Vivian's response was swift and vicious. She hosted an emergency community meeting at her mansion, naturally excluding Marcus, to discuss external threats to property values. The woman actually served Pagrijo and imported cheese while plotting to destroy a family that had lived there since before she was born. Within days, anonymous flyers appeared in every mailbox, claiming Marcus organic fertilizers posed health hazards to children and pets. The flyers featured photos of his compost bins taken with telephoto lenses, making natural decomposition look like toxic waste dumps. The paper smelled like expensive perfume. Vivian's signature, scent that everyone in the neighborhood recognized. The psychological warfare escalated when the HOA installed security cameras pointed directly at Marcus' gate along with bright LED floodlights that turned his peaceful farm into a prison yard. The constant electrical hum replaced the natural sounds of crickets and owls that had lulled his family to sleep for generations. Emma started wearing earplugs to bed, but Marcus was playing chess while Vivian played checkers. Trail cameras captured HOA board members skulking around his property at midnight. His weekly farm stand became an intelligence-gathering operation as neighbors quietly shared information about Vivian's increasingly desperate tactics. The breakthrough came when Mrs. Mila, a retired teacher and longtime HOA member, approached Marcus during vegetable sales. She tried recruiting me to complain about property tax implications, Mrs. Mila whispered, nervously, glancing around. Marcus, I think you should know. She's planning something much bigger than road access. That bigger plan revealed itself the next morning. Marcus discovered his car tires slashed in the school parking lot while attending Emma's parent-teacher conference. The rubber hung in shreds, and the distinct smell of fresh-cut tire rubber filled his nostrils. Security footage showed a white Tesla in the vicinity just minutes before the vandalism was discovered. The message was unmistakable. We can reach your family anywhere, anytime. Marcus realized this wasn't just about property rights anymore. This was about whether a corrupt HOA board could terrorize an American family into abandoning everything their ancestors had built. He started sleeping with a baseball bat beside his bed, and Sarah began varying her routes to work, constantly checking mirrors for Tesla headlights. The sound of gravel crunching under tires now made everyone in the Kellerman household freeze and listen. Was it a legitimate delivery truck or another late-night harassment campaign? The smell of diesel fuel, once associated with honest farm work, now triggered anxiety about what fresh hell Vivian might unleash next. But Marcus had one crucial advantage Vivian didn't know about. He'd been recording every threatening phone conversation, documenting every harassment incident, with timestamps and photos, and building a legal case that would soon turn her privileged world completely upside down. Vivian wasn't done playing dirty. 3 days after the tire slashing incident, Marcus received a surprise visit from the county code enforcement officer, followed by fire inspectors, building inspectors, and environmental officials, all carrying clipboards, all asking questions about his illegal commercial activity. Turns out Vivian had weaponized the entire bureaucratic system against him. She'd filed coordinated complaints with every county department on the same day. A calculated assault designed to overwhelm Marcus with inspection fees, compliance costs, and administrative hell. The paper trail was unmistakable. All complaints submitted within a 2-hour window, all using identical language about public safety concerns. The county demanded Marcus obtain a commercial agricultural permit for farming operations that had been running legally since 1960. The permit application alone cost $2,800 plus a mandatory environmental impact study for $15,000. Timeline for compliance, 45 days, or face daily fines of $500. But Sarah had been doing her own detective work. Her nursing background made her naturally suspicious of coincidences. So, she'd been digging through social media profiles and public records. What she found made Marcus' blood pressure spike. Vivian's LinkedIn showed direct connections to 3 county officials who'd suddenly become interested in the Kellerman farm. The smoking gun. Vivian's Facebook photos from a girls' weekend in Napa Valley featuring wine selfies with the county commissioner's wife. Restaurant receipts from Sarah's research showed Vivian had dined with the lead code inspector 2 days before the farm harassment began. Marcus had read enough news stories about corruption to recognize the pattern. Officials accepting meals and entertainment in exchange for selective enforcement. Janet Reeves immediately filed a selective enforcement complaint, pointing out that 47 other rural properties in the county had identical violations that were never cited. She demanded all communications between HOA board members and county officials regarding the Kellerman farm through public records requests. The documents that came back were devastating. Email chains revealed Vivian had been cultivating these relationships for months, hosting dinner parties and charity events specifically to influence county policy. One particularly damning email discussed making Marcus so miserable with inspections that he'll take any offer just to escape. During this bureaucratic bombardment, Mrs. Ma made another secret visit to Marcus' farm stand. This time, she brought something that would change everything. A smartphone recording from Vivian's latest strategy session with 3 board members. Mrs. Mila had hidden her phone under a decorative pillow during what she thought was a normal HOA meeting. The audio quality was crystal clear. Vivian's voice discussing Phase 2 pressure tactics and instructing board members to document every code violation, real or imagined. But the most chilling part was her casual mention of forcing Marcus to sell at 40% below market value. Then we flip it to Brad for the full $3.2 million. Marcus recognized that name. Brad was the developer contact he'd overheard in previous phone conversations. The conspiracy was bigger than he'd imagined, involving not just harassment, but systematic market manipulation too. Steal his property at fire sale prices. Vivian's next move targeted something even more personal, water rights. She convinced the HOA to vote on emergency water conservation measures during fabricated drought concerns. Suddenly, Marcus' irrigation system violated community standards, and the main water line to his property developed mysterious maintenance issues, requiring weeks of repairs. The timing was surgical. Without irrigation, Marcus' organic vegetables would die just as summer growing season peaked. His farm-to-table delivery contracts with 3 major restaurants were already hanging by a thread due to access problems. Losing his crops would finish him financially, but Marcus had learned to think 3 moves ahead. Instead of begging the HOA for water access, he quietly hired a well drilling company and punched a new water source directly on his property. Perfectly legal, completely independent of HOA control, and absolutely infuriating to Vivian when she discovered the drilling equipment on his land. The sound of the drill bit grinding through bedrock at 6 a.m. probably woke half the neighborhood. Marcus smiled every morning listening to that mechanical rhythm, knowing each foot deeper meant one step closer to independence from Vivian's stranglehold. Meanwhile, community battle lines were hardening. Vivian supporters began parking cars to block Marcus farm stand customers, forcing families to walk hundreds of yards just to buy fresh vegetables. Emma reported being excluded from study groups and uninvited from parties. Teenage social warfare reflecting the adult conflict. The breaking point came when someone sprayed industrial herbicide along Marcus' property line during the night, killing his prize heritage apple trees. 13-year-old varieties his great-grandfather had planted. The chemical smell lingered for days, acrid and artificial in the morning air that once carried only the sweet scent of apple blossoms. Those trees weren't just plants. They were living family history. Marcus stood among the withered branches, touching bark his ancestors had touched, watching Emma cry over trees she'd climbed as a little girl. Dorothy sat in her wheelchair, staring at the destruction with tears in her eyes, remembering her husband planting saplings 60 years ago. That night, Sarah found Marcus sitting alone in the kitchen at 2 a.m. staring at photos of the trees in full bloom. "They're trying to erase us," he whispered. "Not just force us out. Erase every trace we were ever here." The tree poisoning was Vivian's biggest mistake yet. Within hours, photos of the dead heritage apple trees went viral on local Facebook groups, generating hundreds of angry comments from people who'd never even heard of the Kellerman farm before. The acrid smell of dying would seem to carry for miles, a chemical stench that made neighbors realize this wasn't just property dispute. This was environmental warfare. But Vivian doubled down on destruction. She contacted Marcus' 3 remaining restaurant clients, claiming food safety concerns about produce grown on a farm with compromised access roads. Her voice dripped with false concern during recorded calls where she described imaginary contamination risks. The restaurants, already nervous about liability, canceled contracts within the same week. Monthly farm income dropped 70% overnight. For the first time in Marcus' life, mortgage payments were at risk. Sarah found him at the kitchen table at midnight, calculator in hand, trying to figure out how long they could survive without selling. The numbers were brutal. The insurance attack came next, coordinated with surgical precision. Marcus' farm policy was suddenly under review for high-risk location factors, with cancellation notices arriving the exact same day. County fire inspectors demanded $25,000 in emergency access improvements. That's when Sarah made a discovery that changed everything. Digging through corporate filings, she found that Vivian sat on the board of directors for Regional Risk Assessment Corporation, Marcus' insurance parent company. Her vote had directly influenced his policy review. The meeting minutes showed discussions about problematic rural policies in development zones, Marcus had read enough investigative journalism to recognize the pattern. Corruption often hides in corporate board relationships and regulatory capture. Once you know where to look, the financial conflicts become obvious and prosecutable under federal anti-corruption statutes. The midnight dumping operation was captured in full HD by Marcus security cameras. Dump trucks with Prestige Valley logos illegally scattered construction debris across his organic fields. Broken concrete, rusty rebar, chemical-stained lumber destroying soil that had been certified organic for 15 years. The grinding sound of hydraulic lifts and the crash of falling debris echoed across the valley like mechanical thunder. By dawn, Vivian had filed emergency environmental complaints, claiming Marcus operated hazardous agricultural practices. She contacted competing newspapers with fabricated stories about contamination cover-ups by a rogue farmer threatening neighborhood safety.